Assalamu alaikum. Peace upon you all, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to our EvoKE webinar series that we started with the beginning of 2024. Today, we have with us Professor Mohammed Bouaouna, who is an associate teaching professor at Carnegie Mellon University in Qatar. Mohammed graduated with a PhD in physiology and physiopathology from Paris, the 6th Pierre and Marie Curie University in France in 2005. After his postdoc at Yale University, he joined the Biological Sciences program at Carnegie Mellon University in Qatar as a teaching faculty. As a cell biologist, Mohammed carries out his research on cancer cell adhesion and migration and focuses his teaching on cell developmental and cancer biology. Since 2017, Mohammed developed an interest in teaching evolutionary biology to undergraduate students. He strives to bridge the divide between science and faith in a multicultural environment. He received the 2020 Wimmer Faculty Fellowship for the development of teaching, and in 2023, he co-organized the workshop on evolutionary biology in the MENA region, the first workshop on evolution in Qatar. So we're really excited to have Professor Mohammed with us today. To listen to what he's going to share from his experience about evolution. And for those who it's their first time coming to join this webinar, EvoKE is an organization based in Europe, but it's international and global, trying to advocate and promote evolution and how it integrates in every aspect of our lives and how we can raise more awareness within the general public and the scientific community to how nothing makes sense without evolution. So over to you, Mohammed. Welcome, and then we will have you speaking for around 40 minutes, and then we'll open it for Q&A if anyone has any questions. So over to you.
Okay, well, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Dr. Dajani. Thank you, Rana, and thank you, Zana, for this invitation. I'm really happy to join you today for this webinar. And yeah, as you mentioned, I would like to share with you how I came to teach evolution in Qatar and what happened since then. And we'll be telling you about the project that myself and Dr. Dajani and other scientists are involved with. So I guess my screen is shared currently. Am I correct?
Yes, we can see your slides.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
go
good.
ahead.
So I would like to quickly go through background slides to tell you who I am and what I do and why actually I came to teach about evolution. I'd like to highlight challenges and opportunity in teaching evolution that could be specific to the region, in the MENA region and the Arab countries specifically. I will tell you a little bit about the course I developed and how I try to tackle these challenges. And then the workshop that Dr. Rana mentioned earlier, which is the first workshop on evolutionary biology in Qatar and in the MENA region. And then how this led us to basically craft a new project to try to improve the teaching of evolution in this region of the globe by trying to understand what are the underlying challenges to teaching evolution in the MENA region. So as I was introduced, I'm a cell biologist. By training, I'm not an evolutionary biologist. I define myself as Muslim. I grew up in Tunisia. I did my PhD in France, as was mentioned before, and I spent several years as a postdoc in Yale University before I moved to Qatar. I'm currently an associate teaching professor at Carnegie Mellon University here in Qatar, and I'm part of the Biological Sciences program. So this is where I am now, and Carnegie Mellon University is a branch campus of the main campus in Pittsburgh. It's a US-based university. And our campus is a part of what's called Education City here in Qatar. It's a huge campus which has 7 to 8 branch campuses for well-known universities like Weill Cornell. So this is Carnegie Mellon. This is Weill Cornell Qatar campus. And our mission here is to provide education to local Qatari students, but also international students. And I will tell you a bit more about that later. So my university actually doesn't only deliver bachelor degree in biological sciences, but also we offer other majors. What led me to get interested in teaching evolution when I first came to this region, I started noticing in social media the spread of many videos and talks and shows that carry a message that is either anti-science or pseudoscience messages. There were actually many YouTube channels that promote flat Earth ideas. This actually got the attention of even media in the West. Young Muslim scholar, cleric, basically claiming again that Earth is flat. And all of this is coming from relatively new young influencers and clerics who are, for the most part, using arguments that are based on Islamic scripture. And they are basically conveying and promoting pseudoscience and ideas that I find myself really uncomfortable with. During that same time, and it's still actually happening now, there is another trend happening in the Muslim world, which is misinterpretation of Islamic scripture to prove scientific facts. This is, in Arabic terms, is called ijaz. And basically, the idea is to dig deep into the religious texts to try to find scientific laws, to find many types of scientific. I'm sorry, I'm blanking. To find different scientific findings in the scripture. So, for example, a well-known example is basically how we can calculate speed of light just using the Islamic scripture. So, having said that, I tried to look around me, and I found really inspiration in scientists and researchers with whom I think I share many commonalities. So, Dr. Rana Dajani, I started following you and really got inspired by your work and your teaching in this region. Also, Dr. Nidal Gassoum, who is astrophysicist in the UAE, and Dr. Jim Al-Khalili, who is based in the UK. So all of these inspiring people are Muslim scholars and scientists who were educated in the Western universities, and they through their talks and their teaching and their the different media they use, they were trying to build a bridge between science and Islamic faith. And that's what I really liked and I got inspired by. So I wanted to also reflect a little bit about the challenges and opportunities in teaching evolution in this context. So in many of the Muslim countries, there is a conservative and literalistic teaching of Islam that does not help young Muslim students and young Muslims in general to be more open to the teaching of evolution. In addition to this, in Qatar, for example, Darwinian evolution is not taught in Qatari schools. Even international schools that are present here in Qatar and in many other countries in the region, evolution is vaguely mentioned in in these curricula. When it comes to universities, specifically state universities, evolution is either not taught, or sometimes the distorted version of evolution is taught to students. And there are really few universities in the region who offer courses in evolutionary biology. Most often these courses and these universities will have scientists and faculty coming from the West. Either they are Muslim themselves or Arab themselves, or they are basically faculty from Western countries, and they are teaching these evolutionary courses. So what also poses a challenge in teaching evolution in this context is to make it relatable to students. And that is difficult sometimes. If the student doesn't actually see either a significance or can actually relate to the topic, it makes it difficult to get students interested in this. So another point that makes it also a challenge, which is most often scientists who got their education in the West, they are viewed with some suspicion when it comes to what they teach and how they interact with students. So the idea is basically our Western education could have corrupted our faith, and we became more influenced by non-Islamic or un-Islamic ideas and non-Islamic teaching, which sometimes makes it difficult when we are trying to interact with students. So finally, or one additional challenge is the context in Arab countries, where scientific knowledge and talking about science, generally speaking, is not prevalent in a way. So that adds basically to the list of challenges that we are facing in this region. Now, talking about challenges, there are also some opportunities that are offered for us here. And I'm going to maybe focus on my teaching and the institution where I am. I really have a very supportive academic environment that supports me in all aspects of my teaching. And when I was developing the course, the students with whom I work, I find that they have really little exposure to the theory of evolution, which could be seen as basically a negative point, but I take it as an opportunity, because I would be maybe the first person who is going to tell them about the theory of evolution and present it to them in a way that makes sense and they can understand it in the correct fashion. In my institution, we have really small classes, or I'm sorry, small class cohorts, and that makes it easier to interact with students. And the background diversity is also present. So not only we have Muslim students, they are the majority, but also we have other students from other different backgrounds. And that helps when I will tell you later about the type of discussion I run in class. There is communication between different students from different backgrounds, which is more enriching to the students, and get them to understand not just evolution as a science, but also how different cultures, different religions, different faiths actually interact with the theory and with the science. The environment in which I teach, the medium is English, and that makes it easier to communicate with students, since all the science is actually in English, so it makes it easier for us to communicate. So let me tell you a little bit about the course. I developed the course in 2017, and my drive, or what pushed me to do this, is basically the misunderstanding of the evolutionary theory in the Arab world. Again, I was inspired by many giants in the field, but I felt that this is an area where I can make a difference. I do not have access to social media platforms. So I am not really that present on social media platforms, but I have 20 to 30 students whom I meet maybe twice or 3 times a week for a full semester. And there I find basically the opportunity where I can do a meaningful change, where I can work with these students to get them to understand better what this science is and how impactful it could be. So my motivation initially was to just communicate science to students. It is powerful to get students to understand what science is, to tell them about the limits and the wonders that actually science can provide. I wanted also this not to be just a one-way communication, but to engage them in discussions. I want them to tell me what they think that hinders their understanding of evolution, and also get them to interact with other students in these discussions. So it is an enriching experience for all of them and also for me. I wanted to dispel myths and misconceptions, basically talking about science in the classroom, helping them to disconnect what they hear or what they think they know and replace that by the correct science. I strive to do this in a respectful, inclusive, and a safe environment where I tell my students, whatever you say in this class stays here. So feel free to share your opinions and your thoughts, discuss with each other in a respectful manner. And I think that helps students to open up, to talk, to share, and also to be able to receive from me and from other students. And the last point, which is also important for me, is I would like to use science to protect faith. And I talk about this and I make it clear to all my students about all my motivation from the beginning. My point here is I want students to learn the correct science, but I also want them to use that science to help themselves understand better the world around them, to communicate about that with their relatives, with their friends outside. And I want also, by teaching them the correct science, is for them not to come to a point where if they don't have that correct understanding, and if they find themselves in a dilemma between this is what the science tells me, this is what my faith tells me, I don't want them to come to the point where they have to reject one for the other. So I want that integration, that harmony to be in their minds and their hearts, so they can go in their lives to be the scientists or to be the movers and shakers that they aspire to be, being grounded in their faith and also having proper understanding of science in general. But for me, because I'm a biologist, I want to basically teach them about evolution in a correct manner. So I'm going to skip over the slide. So I would like just to give quick highlights about the course. This might be a bit boring, but I just wanted to tie what I teach to the challenges. So one thing that I find really common to all the students who I teach is the little they know about the history of science. They don't know what the fact is compared to what the law is, what a theory is. And I try to plow through that in the first sessions of the course to get them basically to clear their minds. A theory is not a guesswork. A theory in science is a well-proven, well-structured framework of understanding. And that's what I start with. We talk about many things that relate to the theory, its history. It's important for them to understand how the the theory of evolution came to be the way it is, how it actually evolved itself over time to become the modern, basically, evolutionary synthesis. I try as much as possible to give them examples that would help them better understand. Again, I'm teaching undergraduates, so try to use examples that get them to understand the concept as clearly and as effectively as possible. For that, I use the work of many known scientists, for example, Hope Hoekstra and her work on mice adaptation, for example, in the wild, using examples of adaptation of coat color. We also talk about the origin of life, and that's important because students try to link things together. And when we talk about evolution, they can only see it in the life forms that exist around them. But I try to get them to understand that evolution is actually deeper than that. It basically touches the start of life on Earth. And when we start talking about how the initial first molecules of RNA, for example, got formed, and how clay as a surface, for example, played a big role in the assembly of the first biomolecules, I basically touch a chord when I start talking about that, because that links to knowledge that they have from the scripture, from the Quran and Sunnah, where the term clay or clay was, and it is known to be the first substance from which life emerged. And therefore, I try to make that connection between what the origin of life is at the molecular level and how that could be seen from a faith or religious perspective. That is a link between the two, and there is no disconnect. And that's what I try to teach the students. Also, I try to make it relatable. So we all went through the pandemic, and viral evolution is a big thing. And I try to link the two things together. So teaching about the origin of life, and from there we talk about how viruses emerge and how they evolve, and how the learning about evolution, understanding evolution, would help us protect ourselves, understand how other life forms and viruses basically evolve and how they can affect us. The last topic in my course is always human evolution. I ensure that students have a clear, solid understanding of the tenets of the theory before we tackle that last topic. And I try to do it in a way that is not provoking students. And the way I present it to them is, well, this is the science, let's discuss it. My goal is not to indoctrinate students, and I tell them that really my goal is to show you the science, and let's discuss it and let's talk about it. If by the end of this course you still think that evolution is not a thing, I'm fine with that. My questions, my assessment doesn't question that. I just want to ask you about the science, and that's the sole purpose of the course. So I talked about the discussion or some of the discussions that we have in class. This is an exercise where I ask students basically to bring to class an argument either against or for the theory of evolution. And then I moderate a discussion where students will talk with each other, try either to defend or refute the argument that they just heard from another group. And I find this exercise really to be very engaging, and students like it, even though sometimes it gets a bit heated. But I try to make sure that the discussion is always run in a respectful manner. And students always share after the session basically how this discussion changed their understanding or not, for that matter. And I'm always surprised by what students tell me about how the discussion affected them after the session. Another type of work that students will do in class is try to get students basically to do the research themselves about topics that have relevance. So, for example, human evolution when it comes to lactose tolerance. This is to show them that humans are actually continue to evolve, or topics like HIV Libyan case. So this is a well-known case of children infected with the HIV virus, and get them to learn how phylogenetic trees actually helped solving the mystery and basically allowed these nurses and the doctor to be freed from Libya. So the last thing I would like to mention here is I try to invite speakers who are more knowledgeable than me and have expertise in their field. And I try to offer my students a diverse array of speakers. So I invite theologians who write and who are versed in the sciences, in particular in the field of evolution, like Dr. Muhammad Ghali. Dr. Becky Kramer is an evolutionary biologist. She specializes in studying sexual selection in birds. And recently I engaged with Dr. Nick Pinson, who is who is a paleontologist and the curator of fossil marine mammals at the Smithsonian Institution National Museum of Natural History in Washington. Dr. Pinson actually, he carries his work here in Qatar, and he focuses or he studies the dugong evolution. Qatar is known to have one of the largest dugong population. And his work is actually very inspirational. And the last fall, basically, I invited him to give a guest lecture about the topic and his research here in Qatar. So the point here is I'm trying again to make the topic relatable to the students I teach, and I find actually value in that. I would like to move and talk about the workshop. So how did we come to organizing this workshop? So working with my colleagues, Dr. Kwai-Chu Chen and Becky, who both are evolution instructors at Weill Cornell. So they are in the building next to us. We wanted to connect with other researchers and educators in the field of evolutionary biology in the region. Evolution is a scientific fact, and it permeates many aspects of our lives, like what we learned from the COVID pandemic, for example. And while it's really sensitive topic, it is an important one. And because we have this understanding that there is a lack of awareness, there is a lack of knowledge on this topic, with the misinformation that is circulating about evolution in this region. So that's why we coordinated this effort in organizing the first workshop on evolutionary biology in the MENA region. So this is the website of our workshop we held a year ago here in Qatar, in Carnegie Mellon University. This is the team of invited speakers and attendees. It was a small event, but I think it was an impactful event, and I will tell you why shortly. So the workshop basically was meant to increase the understanding of cultural competence, and the meaning of that is we need to be aware of the students we are teaching. What is their background? What cultural, what are the cultural aspects that can influence their understanding of evolution, and cater basically to the audience we have in our classroom. In addition, we wanted to basically share successful approaches to teaching evolution, and different attendees were able to talk about the way they teach evolution and how they do it successfully, and also to provide feedback on course components that have been less engaging or actually being successful. So the workshop when we are thinking about who to invite, we wanted to make sure that we invite people who really understand the topic, not just understand the science, but understand science in context, because that's important for us here in the MENA region. So we had the pleasure to have Dr. Rana Dajani, who accepted the invitation. We had also Dr. Jamie Jensen. So Dr. Jamie Jensen is a professor of biology at Brigham Young University in Utah in the US. She holds a doctoral degree in biology, but her profile is really very interesting, and that's why we invited her. She her degree in biology has an emphasis on science education, and she focuses on the reconciliation of science and religion among religious students, with specific focus on evolution education. So this was really of interest for us, and we were happy to have her engage with us in the workshop. We also invited Dr. Jörg Ditterman, who he is an associate professor of history at VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University in Qatar. He is a researcher and the author of a nice book called Researching Biology and Evolution in the Gulf States. So he conducted research on the topic of evolution in the region here, and having him with us, actually, he brought lots of insight about the history of evolution and evolutionary science here in the region. Dr. Mehmet Somel is an evolutionary anthropologist. His research interests include population, evolutionary genetics, including archaeogenomics and human evolution. And his practice as an evolutionary scientist in Turkey basically was helpful for us also, and for the attendee, to understand how an evolutionary scientist work and get support, or the lack of, in a Muslim country. And Dr. Ghali, I introduced him earlier. He is a theologian and a Muslim scholar who studies the origin of the tension between evolution and Islam. So some basically aspects of this course, of this workshop. We had research talks, one in particular on helping US students overcome barriers to accepting evolution, given by Dr. Jensen. We had group discussions and showcasing where different attendees from different universities and high schools here in Qatar and in the region were able to showcase how they teach evolution and the challenges that they face in their classrooms. We had different discussions on culture and competence, and breakout groups workshopping on new modules and strategies to teach evolution in the context of Muslim Arab countries. So the first outcome from this workshop was basically this nice long list of different resources that we made available for all our attendees, which they can use to improve their teaching practice of evolution, and also to learn about the challenges and how they can face these challenges in a way that help them better teach evolution. Now, to transition to the next part, I would like to highlight the panel discussions that we also had in this workshop. So this is another aspect of the workshop where several panel discussions which try to bring to light past and current contexts on how they shape the interaction between Muslims and the theory. So one particular panel discussion revolved around cultural and historical context of evolutionary biology in the MENA region. And this panel focused on understanding how the context of the Muslim Arab region over the past centuries defined the acceptance of the theory of evolution. And basically, historically, during the time of Darwin, that's when the first encounter between the Ottoman Empire and Arab Muslim world and the theory occurred. And it was actually a positive encounter. There was no rejection of the theory initially by the Muslim world, Muslim scholars, and only the advent of colonialism, which subjected the Arab world, was met with the resistance from the Arab Muslim world that not only rejected colonial powers, but also the science and the teaching that came from these powers, including the theory of evolution. So in a way, it's the misfortune of the theory that the context and the history of this region caused basically the rejection of the theory. What I'm trying to say here is the religious texts can accommodate the teaching of the theory. However, the perception and the understanding and the rejection that is found in this region is not because of the faith of the religion. It is mainly driven and compounded by the history and the context of this region dealing with the colonial powers. So these types of discussion actually got us to think about the current state and the current current time we live in, and what are the challenges that are facing us as educators, as researchers, when it comes to teaching evolution. And for that, we wanted to map the challenges and clearly identify what challenges we have in our context that act as a barrier between student understanding, between students and their understanding properly of evolutionary theory. So that led us, and when I say us, so a group of researchers and scientists, so including the organizers of the workshop, Dr. Rana Dajani, Dr. Jensen, and Dr. Abdullah basically joined us in this plan and in this project. And the project is, we would like to map Islamic specific challenges and to develop tools in evolution education that are specific to the Arab Islamic societies. I'm sorry, okay, I think I found my slides here. So what are we talking about here? So I would like to pose the problem that we identified. And the problem is basically a deficit in public's understanding studies. What I mean by that is public understanding studies are studies, surveys that are run to measure or to gauge basically public understanding of science, generally speaking. So when it comes to evolutionary theory, there are many tools, many types of surveys that have been used to gauge, to understand, to assess public understanding of evolutionary theory. For example, the measure of acceptance and rejection of the theory of evolution, abbreviated as MATE or the ICEA. And these tools, as I mentioned, so they are meant to assess respondents' attitude towards evolutionary science. And they have well-established lexicons, research methods, and questions and hypotheses for investigating the public's attitude to evolution. However, for decades, Muslims either living in the West or in Arab Islamic societies have been the subjects of these studies, again, for public understanding of evolution, using the same qualitative and quantitative tools. These tools were applied and designed initially for Judeo-Christian societies. And this is where the disconnect happens. So basically, these public's understandings studies have inherent deficits and biases in them because they were not designed, and they were not designed for the Muslim population for Arab Islamic societies. So, for example, I would like maybe to give one or two examples here, and I believe we might be running out of time. So, in some of these surveys questions, a question would be, do you agree or disagree with Darwin's theory of evolution? A question like that carries loads of loads of meaning. So, for example, using the word theory, that's an ambiguous term, and it could mean basically there is uncertainty here. Also, posing the question could assume that the respondent has knowledge of the Darwin theory of evolution, but sometimes the person or the respondent doesn't have that knowledge. So there is also, beside the question itself, the respondents themselves might not, again, as I mentioned, know what the topic of the question is. And as an example, in a survey done in Egypt, the question was, which, if any, of the following statements best describes how well you understand the term evolution? And 62% of the respondents said that they have never heard the term evolution. So these tools, while they can have some benefit, definitely they are not designed initially basically for this context here. So not only then they can tar society and religious groups with the same brush, which could be problematic. They can steer public debate. They can sometimes determine education and intervention strategies and changes in science curricula. So the message here is that the deficit that we see in these tools could have major repercussion. And that's why what is warranted then is because of this deficit, a new tool needs to be designed. So developing then a more appropriate assessment tool is critical for understanding how Muslims engage with the evolutionary theory. And I would like also to add that no prior projects like this have been has been done before, nor have provided tools to improve dialogue surrounding evolution and measure the outcomes of such intervention within Muslim communities. So our project then, the objective behind it is to map tension points between Islam and evolution using methodology that has been proven successfully or successful in Judeo-Christian audiences. The meaning here is we would like to adopt what was used or what was designed for a different context, but adopt it to the new context in which, or the context in which we are. In addition to this, develop an assessment tool for Muslim populations and to design teaching tools to improve dialogue about evolution among Muslims. So these are the three objectives that I mentioned. So to again quickly go through them, and I would like to be aware of the time here. So mapping the challenges, again, we would like to start with the strategy or with an approach from the bottom up, where we would like to run unbiased surveys, to use qualitative approach through free response essays that are designed in Arabic, not in English. And this is key because different terms, different words could mean different things for Arabic speaking versus English speaking audiences. And using that initial raw data, we would like to conduct thematic analysis and determine emergent themes from these surveys, based on which we would like to create quantitative tools or quantitative instruments. And what we would like to do here is to take these outcomes of the mapping that we have done initially to modify existing instruments to make them better fit for an Islamic audience. And this instrument will need to be validated. This could be done through the work or by collaboration with experts in the field, by running interviews where the instrument is used, so we can make sure that it is properly calibrated and it's giving us the appropriate information and reading we are seeking from the audience we have. Lastly, we would like also through this project to design and disseminate intervention tools, meaning that we would like to use this understanding and the data we have to design online resources for teachers, for students, and for interested members of the public. And this resource will outline how to address the main challenges to engage basically with evolution in the classroom, and provide educational activities and give short video tutorials on how best to implement these strategies. So basically, this is what the project we worked on is about. As we say, inshallah, we would like to get it funded in the near future so we can start the study, because it is important. If, as educators, we would like to move the needle to get our students and the public in general to have more acceptance, we need to identify exactly what is preventing them. And this has to be really specific to the context of the Islamic society in the MENA region. So for that, I would like to say thank you to all of you. And I'm not sure if we have time for questions, but I would be happy to answer any questions.